All right, we are back. Episode 65 or so of Marketing Operators. Thanks for joining. It's just Cody and I today. Connor Rowland's out. We've got Steve Rekuc coming on later. So he'll be on for like 30 minutes. So we'll get a guest halfway through. It'll be a fun episode. Before we get any further, I wanted to thank our sponsors, Motion, Rich Panel, Aftercell, Prescient, and House.
Okay, I just sent my entire team an email about this training that Motion's putting on, and you guys are going to block your calendars for this. Every operator I talk to is thinking about how to build lean teams and become more efficient. And AI is an obvious part of this. We talk about it on the Marketing Operators all the time because it can automate time-consuming parts of the creative strategy process. And Motion, our sponsor, they're doing a live virtual event series with 5 sessions on how to adapt timeless advertising principles to the new era of AI-first ad production. This is their legendary virtual event series, Make Ads That Convert. Last year, over 11,000 DTC marketers registered for it, and it is going to be a banger. Listen to these topics and just an elite cast of the best experts. You'll hear from names like Alex Cooper, Jimmy Slagle, Jacob Possell, Jared Denny, Kelly Rocklin, Morella Crespi, and Barry Hott. A few of the topics that they're going to go over: using AI for deep customer research, advanced prompting techniques for ads that don't look AI generated, making sure your AI ads actually sell physical products, using AI actors and voice models for scalable UGC, building a lean AI augmented team of 2025. Here's one session that really caught my eye. It features Kelly Rocklin, and she is going deep into using AI to make scalable UGC with AI actors and voiceovers without it sounding cringe, how to spin up high volume messaging tests using AI agents, super interested in what she's learned here, expand on what already works without replacing the human spark that makes it work in the first place, how to test creative like a craftsperson, not a chaos agent, how to build internal creative testing systems for your AI creative, just to name a few. It's going to be really, really good. Highly recommend registering. If you want to check it out, go register for this. It's free and it's 5 total sessions. You can register at motionapp.com/make-ads-that-convert. That is motionapp.com/make-ads-that-convert.
The big update, unfortunately, Connor Rowland's not here to celebrate with us, but we've all been on our soapbox about a certain type of analytics reporting and like a really in the weeds topic that we're seeing some traction on. So I think this was a part of my New Year prediction.
I believe it was.
Yeah. No, that was a rhetorical question.
This and Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, 100%. I care. I've grown like OCD about our reporting. And one of the things that very few analytics platforms support that I think is super important is adjusting for day of week, year over year. And like today's a great example. It's June 16th. June 16th last year, if you're just opening up Shopify, comparing today's sales versus last year, you're comparing yourself to 1, a Sunday, and 2, Father's Day. So it's like, that's a terrible comp. What you want to be comparing is the Monday after Father's Day. And finally, I've been on my soapbox about it for 6 months. My New Year's prediction was that a analytics tool, and I should have held myself to a higher standard here. I was hoping a notable analytics tool would begin supporting that. And our friend David tweeted at us. I haven't gotten it in my account yet, but Shopify seems to be rolling out day-based year-over-year reporting, which I could not be more excited about. I feel like it's maybe one of our larger accomplishments as a podcast.
I don't have it. That's the best part, is that like you talked about it and you don't have it.
Yeah. And maybe it's just a prank from David. Maybe he just photoshopped it in to get me super excited. Yeah, dude. I mean, it's bothersome. Do you look at like, are you doing intraday year-over-year reporting at all? Like, do you ever look it up? Like, oh, how are we pacing today versus last year? Or am I just like too in the weeds?
Only like big promo periods, right? Like a Black Friday or something like that.
No, I do it every day.
You do every day? You don't think that's overkill?
No, well, it's for sure overkill. That's actually not quite true. I've probably been doing it way more because we're just coming out of Father's Day right now, but I bet it'll slow down by the end of the month or July. But I do it quite often just to kind of understand how is the day shaping up compared to this time last year.
Now I get why you need this reporting so badly.
Dude, 100%.
Because if I was doing that all of the time and it was just default on like same day last year, then that would also kill me. So I get it. Because I will say I'm super happy for you and I'm super happy for us. And I will take this win because a win for one of us is a win for all of us.
Totally.
But I don't have the same compulsion that I need this that badly.
Everybody, the thing is, so I totally understand you not like feeling the compulsion to have this. It should just be the default. There's no reason for it to not be the default. I can understand not caring about like the daily year over year reporting that granularly, but there's no upside to doing it purely year over year. I think you're just introducing inconsistencies in the comp.
Yeah, for sure. Unless you're looking like longer time period if you zoom out, but otherwise. So how do you feel about what they called it? I think in David's tweet, he called it, obviously we don't know, we don't have it in ours yet, not bitter or anything, but previous year match day of week. Is that what you would have called it? What have you been calling it prior to that?
That's fine. Ironically, I think who does it best is GA4. I think that's how they phrase it. And they've got, they can do it year over year. And then also you can compare the same day week over week. Which you're a big anti-week over week guy, but they'll be like, you could look at yesterday and then compare it to the same period the previous week. Yeah, and then you could do, I think within GA, you could do like week to date and then compare to the previous week or the previous year, which Shopify will get there one day.
I'm definitely not anti. Like I just look at against forecast way more. The thing that always gets me, Shopify does a good job of this. When you pick like last 7 in any analytics tool and they include today, that kills me.
Okay. All right, dude. That's the next mission.
I think Shopify does it pretty well, but yeah, that's next one. How often do you use Shopify? Like obviously you guys have data warehouse. I know you guys have like your growth dash, Northbeam. How often are you using Shopify analytics? Like, are you in there daily?
It's funny well, the thing is, we'll do it we're like kind of ramping up our data warehouse now. So like our first project with the data warehouse was just to get all revenue from all of our channels and all of our ad spend properly categorized. So we could move we have this really big, monstrous Google sheet that we use, which I love and has been a labor of love for like the last 6.5 years or whatever. But we're moving out of that into the data warehouse. And that is just going to be slightly more accurate. We're going to get slightly more accurate variable costs. We'll get accurate COGS on a daily basis, which weren't getting calculated within the daily growth dashboard. So that's where the focus has been. Where Shopify is the most helpful right now, Shopify Analytics, is anything product related. So if I want to look at like sales of a certain SKU yesterday, Shopify is still the best source of truth, as well as if I want to look at revenue today, Shopify is the best for that.
For sure. I agree with you. I think data warehouse one would be an interesting pod topic. We've got one. I know Connor Hexcloud, they're using Connor Hexcloud, they're using Ceres as well. I feel like that could be a pretty interesting one. The funny thing is, so we have data warehouse. The first thing we did when we hooked it up, I was like, I need to use our data warehouse to pipe data into the spreadsheet. Totally. And they're like, why would you want to do that? I'm like, I need it. This is what we use every day. Get me my data in the sheet. So it's like, it's coming from the data warehouse, which means it's accurate. And whatever connectors we had previously, it's just like, we're using Funnel, which is like a Supermetrics thing prior to it. And like, just broke pretty much at our volumes. Like we broke it one Black Friday and it just never worked again after that.
Yeah. But, no, totally. I get it. I mean, there's a certain, just being able to work in pivot tables is in my comfort zone, you know?
Mm-hmm. I'm not good at that, but I like spreadsheets.
Fair enough.
I will say though, by the way, on Shopify Analytics, I am using it more because of Sidekick. I am definitely in there using it more often.
What have you been doing?
So my data analyst is about to have a second baby. So I'm like, hey, you know what? Things I used to go to him for, let me see if I can do it. So just like small stuff frequently bought together is a cool one, is an easy one. Like,
awesome.
Here's another one I was thinking about and showed my VP retail today. The first thing I did when we hired a data analyst maybe a year ago was, hey, I need to know when we open a store in a region, how does our online sales and traffic look? She was like, I don't know SQL. You need to do that. Now I can upload. You can upload files into Sidekick. I can upload or just even tell Sidekick the day that we opened any store and do like a pre and post look back on online sales and traffic in those regions.
Dude, awesome. And it did that pretty well.
I haven't done it yet. I haven't done that part. I've done the frequently bought together, which is pretty good.
That's a good one. And frequently bought together, I think, is tricky. I think basket analysis within Shopify is like surprisingly difficult to do. That was actually what I was going to list as moving to the data warehouse. That's something that we currently didn't have nearly as much like real-time insight into as I would have liked. We'd only pull data from like snapshots of time and do basket analyses post hoc, when in reality, I'd love to have like an automated weekly report of like, what was it last week? How is it changing? Things like that. So we've got the data warehouse, but it sounds like maybe Sidekick will do it.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I'm trying to decide, because there would be so much value to have other data in there. And I feel like Shopify will know that. Like you don't have your spend data in Shopify, stuff like that.
Right.
I'm trying to decide and guess, maybe this is one of our predictions, what I think is more likely. Does Shopify integrate with those other things and allow you to pull more data into Shopify and use Sidekick? Or does Shopify integrate with ChatGPT and like rather than pulling it in, almost push Shopify data out? What do you think is more likely?
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's probably more likely that Shopify integrates with ChatGPT is my first thought. I actually think for larger brands, though, this data warehouse step is just going to get more and more popular for a couple reasons. One, for larger brands, you're just going to become more and more multi-channel over time. So you're going to need to pipe in from Amazon or from different retail accounts, from Shopify, from different, TikTok shops, whatever, like all that stuff. I guess TikTok shop pipes through Shopify. The point being, you're going to need to aggregate more and more places that like won't always get supported by Shopify or ChatGPT. So you're going to need this like middleware essentially. And then the second one is, I think, so we do a lot of is like, we have a pretty large like product taxonomy. Like we're tagging things by category or silhouette or collection or whether it's licensed or not, et cetera. And like, where does all that information live? Like you could argue that it could live in meta fields within Shopify, and then maybe Sidekick could use it. But again, then you're talking about, well, how do you get that information attached to your Amazon sales? So I think in the case that you described, my gut says Shopify probably integrates with ChatGPT and maybe it gets a little bit more powerful, but middleware, data warehouse, where you load in even more data and then you can format it and clean it in all the ways that align with the way that you think about the business. And then you're querying on top of that. I think that's the end state.
I totally agree. Having it in one place is essential. Yeah. No, I was just thinking about, because I saw that ChatGPT now integrates with HubSpot, which was a pretty big one. And I feel like it's only a matter of time where one of those things with Shopify is happening. But I also wonder if like they also integrate, obviously they integrate with Google Drive, they integrate with like OneNote, like whatever the Microsoft version is. And you can have like SharePoint in there. So we have a lot of our finance stuff in there. So I'll play around with that. But I feel like it's also only a matter of time where like maybe they wouldn't, because it's, like with Snowflake. I don't know what your guys' warehouse is on, but we're on Snowflake for a data warehouse. Like I feel like it's only a matter of time before they're integrated with there as well. Right. And then that almost like cuts out the BI tool layer. And like you just have ChatGPT. I don't know, but I think that'll be cool.
Yeah. I'm super curious to see how it all comes together. But I've said it multiple times on the show. I think the SaaS platforms that have large, unique data sets, or I wouldn't even say large, but just valuable, unique data sets, are well positioned to like just bolt on some sort of LLM. Shopify, I've always put in that bucket. And I just think the data warehouse piece is like, there will always be enough kind of bespoke, not always, for many brands, there will be bespoke stuff that you need to do that will just not get supported within the Shopify like ecosystem. So we'll find these like alternatives with the data warehouse. So I don't really know.
Yeah. And I've heard Harley say that on podcasts. Like they can't, it's not feasible for them to build for everybody. And they're not really building for you and I. They're building for, the 99% of brands, like most new brands. Totally. Not all the features we need. But they did listen. They did throw us a bone. You should take all the credit, by the way, for this.
Oh, with the reporting?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I was DMing the VP of product. I was like, dude, you should really think about doing this. It's been a year since we migrated to Rich Panel, and I had no idea how impactful the right customer service tool could be. Here's what our customer service team has achieved since making the move. 1, Our order volume continues to rise, but our support tickets have not. Our self-service portal helps 47% of website visitors help themselves immediately without having to contact their agents. 2, their AI-powered social media moderator is awesome. We continue to spend a ton on Meta as a part of our marketing mix, and it flags and replies to thousands of comments automatically to help us make the most of our ad spend. Like many of you, I've been cautiously skeptical about certain automation and AI use cases, but our support quality hasn't dipped at all. It's actually gone up. We're at an all-time high of 96% customer satisfaction score. All this, and it's still 50% cheaper than other platforms. No limits on AI usage or tickets, and fair, predictable pricing each month. With market and tariff uncertainty, consumer confidence is in the gutter. You cannot afford bad customer experience or overpaying for older software tools. And migration is super simple. They handle your data import, agent training, and automation setup. You only need 2 or 3 calls and you're live in 14 days. They guarantee a 30% ticket reduction in the first 60 days or your money back, so it's a no-brainer. If you want happier customers and a happier finance team, head over to richpanel.com/demo to book a demo today. No, we had some good predictions. Let me, we got a couple minutes and then Steve jumps on. I've got a couple pulled up. I dumped our YouTube transcript into Claude and it summarized it. We mostly talked about your predictions. 1, App Love and Hype will fade. We're 6 months into the year. Do you feel good about that one?
What do you think?
Dude, I think
I feel good.
Hype will fade. It was a layup, frankly. Like it could only have faded.
I called it at the peak.
Q4. Yeah. It was like App Love and hysteria. And you were like, I think we'll be less excited about it.
I'm like Michael Burry calling one, like what are you calling 11 of the last 1 recessions or something like that?
Yeah, 100%. So that was easy. Claude says this was mine. I don't remember this. Consumer-facing AI-powered e-com tools get traction. Also a layup. I would say if you had told me we recorded this episode in January. If you had told me in June that people would be running fully made AI video during the NBA playoffs, I would not have believed you. So we have seen like an incredibly quick escalation of the quality. So I get that one, but like I was calling such an obvious trend upwards that I'll give the caveat that I wouldn't have expected it to be where it's at today.
Okay.
Did you see the Kalshi ad?
Just before this, I heard people talking about it, but I hadn't watched it. So you put it in the show notes. So just watched it and pretty wild.
Yeah. So we could put it in the show notes for everybody because I didn't feel like it really cracked into D2C Twitter. I've talked about Kalshi before. Kalshi's a betting platform in the US. I think they do incredibly good marketing. I won't go too far down the rabbit hole.
Who's better, them or Chloe?
Oh,
you like how I dropped that with you on it? Because Connor Rowland would have no idea.
No. There'd be so much context to have to give here. Chloe, for those listening, is this YC-backed startup, and the founder is crazy. And basically, we're in this period of time where, like, particularly SaaS founders are just really good at going viral. And I think they understand that. Just getting the eyeballs is so much more valuable than any sort of like negative connotations they could be attaching themselves to or any sort of negative press. The Cluey founder had there was like a quote unquote leaked photo of like a stripper on his lap or something. But that's the sort of idea where like, it wasn't one of their better marketing stunts. They've had some more clever ones, but just the idea like, hey, we're going to get 400,000 impressions on this tweet by doing this thing ends up being a net benefit. Despite people being like, this guy's unserious, he shouldn't be running a company, nets out positive for them. So the Kalshi thing, to go back a little bit, they did a full VO3 generated ad about their betting platform. And the punchline of the ad is the world's gone crazy, bet on it or something. It's like something like that. And it's just these like little vignettes, like 3-4 second clips, whatever VO3 generates, but just kind of pieced together. And there's people doing crazy stuff. At one point, there's a farmer in a inflatable swimming pool with eggs floating around him. And they're just asking him how much he thinks eggs will be in a couple months. And he's like, $9 an egg or something. So it is this absurd ad, all AI generated. And what I loved about the marketing rollout of it was that they ran it during the NBA playoffs last week. And then they had a very concerted social strategy talking about not only them doing it, but how they did it. And I just thought it was like a fantastic way of like, one, taking advantage of like the meta right now with AI generated ads. Two, I think it's a great thing to play during the NBA playoffs. It totally aligns with like them as a betting platform. And then three, having the dedicated social strategy talking about how they did it. I just thought it was like incredibly well done.
I got to check out some of that. Yeah, the ad is crazy. Have you guys done any VO? How do you say it? Is it VO3? Just VO as part of your creative strategy yet?
I think it's VO3. The one that we had running in the account, we generated a hook. So just like the first 3 seconds of one of our luggage ads of somebody with a chainsaw sawing through like a fabric piece of luggage, and there's like clothes like spilling out of it. And it was pretty good. We talked about this a little bit at the Meta Summit a couple weeks ago. We're generating quite a bit of AI content at this point. We had another one from ChatGPT of like an old billfold that was on fire, and then we generate that asset there, and then we're editing it in Photoshop. We have the VO3 example with the chainsaw luggage, and then I don't know if we've talked about it. Well, we did the AI generated baby ad for Father's Day. We did some of those. It did not become a top performer. Did not scale.
All right. It's not. Sometimes it's just about the art, you know.
Dude, 100%.
Yeah, I saw an ad that I was reviewing the other day for my team, and it was talking about like cakey makeup, and so it had somebody for a hook, like non-UGC ad, like stick their head in a cake, and I was like, if this works, we're going VO3 and just like getting as many like cake, hooks as we can.
Dude, totally.
I'm going to try it.
That's the sort of thing, just being super creative. It's still, the Kalshi ad is interesting because it's completely AI generated and then ran during the NBA playoffs, which I think is really cool, doing it on linear TV. For the majority of brands, it does feel like AI generated content is at the point where you can at least be creating pieces of content that you can like be then creative with.
Yeah, in Icon, you can then, I totally agree with that. In Icon, you can like upload an image of a person and have turn that into an avatar.
Oh,
and
cool.
So I was playing around with it. I'm teaching this like AI in service to my team tomorrow at our all hands. So I put my daughter, my 2.5-year-old daughter in it just to see. It's just like, it was like the closest picture I had because like that's what's on my phone. The funniest. Just really? Like, yeah, it's like clearly AI, but like very, very funny and impressive. So yeah, it's cool. It's funny.
Dude, awesome. All right, cool. So we got Steve Rekuc jumping on in a second from Common Thread Collective. Have you been following their the D2C index or the D2C CI or anything like that from them?
Can I say one thing before we turn gears?
Yeah, of course.
I think we should do a predictions episode. I'm reading through some of my tweets that I found. Pretty spot on a bunch of them. I think we did great. Hilariously wrong on number 7.
Oh, what was it?
Consumer confidence and spending will begin to rise back in most markets.
You don't feel like that's the case?
No, at least not in like beauty and luxury.
Ironically, Steve will be able to tell us. I mean, that's like basically what he's tracking. There's a fantastic segue.
Good segue. Yeah, I've seen. They've done a really good job, as always, C2C, like tweeting about it, creating content about it. So definitely have seen and always try to track. So it's cool, but excited to see chat about his updates. I think you've gone a little bit deeper with it than I have.
Yeah, 100%. So you think, going back to your prediction, you think consumer confidence would return? You don't feel it has to at least beauty. I think that's clear. Do you think that's true of the e-com industry at large? Is that like what you're hearing from other brands as well?
Yeah, it's so hard because it's so subjective. It's just like when people reach out and text you and they're like, "Hey, how's performance look for you?" Like that's when you know it's bad. But it seems like it's still not quite there. But definitely some verticals seem to be doing really well. So who knows?
I got a couple. Honestly, we need some sort of tracker for texts about performance between like brand owners, like just kind of like a Bloomberg style terminal of like what people are chatting about. Because I had 2 people reach out to me, say that they thought Father's Day was softer than they expected. We had a fine Father's Day. It was like, I was describing it to them as really okay. And honestly, like those 3 data points are super valuable to contextualize performance, where it's like, hey, look, we feel like we're doing really okay. I've heard from other people that it's soft for them. So you just like, ultimately, it's those anecdotal or like that qualitative data that I think is super valuable and is like impossible to come by. If you don't have something like the DDC CI or a group chat full of other brand owners, like it's really difficult to understand what winning or losing looks like at any given time.
Yeah, and then especially if you're trying to get like within a vertical, like I don't know if you talk to anyone that's like in a similar space, but like let's say I see somebody at the Meta Summer, or if I'm talking to Shireen, like I'm not gonna be honest about it. I'm gonna be like, yeah, we're crushing it, you know. So it's like very hard to get it,
dude.
Especially if I'm talking to Shireen, by the way. But it's like
100%.
very hard to get like a very accurate read of like within your actual market, you know.
Totally. If you're listening to this podcast, I know that you're working hard to drive revenue with upsells and across your e-com site generally. But if you're not monetizing your post-purchase experience, you're leaving easy profit on the table. Most brands and everyone listening are optimizing the transaction journey, but stopping at the thank you page, and that is a big mistake. Aftersell is changing that. We've been using their Rock Thanks feature at Ridge, and it's a no-brainer for us. Here's how it works. You show premium, non-competing offers from brands like Disney Plus and HelloFresh on your order confirmation page. AI-driven personalization picks the best offer from hundreds of reputable advertisers, and brands like True Classic, BlendJet, and Jones Road Beauty are already using it, seeing 30 to 70 cents lift per order. No disruption, no fees, just extra cash in the bank. And the numbers speak for themselves. After-sale customers generate $20,000 to $30,000 in pure profit per 100,000 orders. There's a 16% average engagement rate, which is way better than traditional ads, and it's a new revenue stream without disrupting the checkout. It's an easy win, and it's completely free to try. Plus, Aftersell is hooking up marketing operators listeners because you can sign up today and you get their entire upselling suite for a year, which we also use very heavily. So visit aftersell.com/operators to try Rock Thanks and see the money rolling in. Stop leaving money on the table. Turn your thank you page into more revenue with Aftersell. All right, guys, so we're going to pivot a little bit. We've got Steve Rekuc here from Common Thread Collective, the master of D2CCI. He's going to break down what that means. He's sharing the absolute best data on Twitter every single week. So, Steve, thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, thanks, Connor. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. So, yes, I'm director of data at Common Thread Collective, and I look at a lot of the both brand data for modeling the spend versus AMER, and like the consumer confidence index that we kind of compile in conjunction with No Commerce. So they do the survey, and we kind of have the data to match that up against. So it lends itself really important to the modeling, because we've noticed back in the day that when the consumer confidence published by University of Michigan or the conference board wound up being low, we struggled. Our MER was lower than we had anticipated for those months. So kind of became important, and Taylor kind of tasked me out to see if we could figure out a way to do our own consumer confidence. And
when was that? I think you guys it's got to be almost 2 years or so.
Yeah. It was actually, well, we first started looking at it almost 3 years ago. We noticed MER was correlated to consumer confidence. I had a pretty good correlation at that point in time. And then we got in touch with No Commerce about like 2.5 years ago, and started collecting survey data in March of 23. So
so for those, maybe some people aren't familiar with post-purchase tool that a lot of brands use, and then how are they collecting additional data, and how does it serve as like an alternative to the more commonly known consumer confidence?
Yeah. So, well, our idea was we wanted a little bit more responsive, and I want it tied to a metric that tells me if it's true or false, or what percent off it is. Because the consumer confidence that's published by University of Michigan or Conference Board or OECD doesn't necessarily correlate back to something that you can measure. Like, I don't know if what they said was true,
right?
Or to any extent. So I wanted something to kind of pull it back to, and No Commerce offered the opportunity to kind of get the survey data. So we have an opportunity to kind of do more surveys, because we're not calling people on the telephone like those old consumer confidence. So go ahead.
I was going to ask, what questions does No ask?
Yeah. So five questions. Do you think the economy will be better or worse in the future? Are you spending more or less online this month? Do you anticipate spending more or less online in the next 3 months? Do you enjoy the value of saving or spending your money? What's more kind of a priority there? And do you generally purchase direct from a website or from a marketplace such as Amazon or Temu? And kind of, we also have a little bit of data from No Commerce as well on the AOV that each order has, as well as like state specific for shipping. So we're kind of able to break it down and look at different segments in different ways.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. So you're getting all this like relatively real-time data from consumers via, and how many? Like I imagine it's thousands of people that are answering those questions every month. Do you have a rough number?
Between 1,000 and 2,000 a week. So
1,000 and 2,000 a week. All right.
Yeah. So like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we had so many more purchases, so we're up over 2,000, and then slower weeks we're down around 1,000.
Totally. Yeah. So you're getting all this like relatively real-time data from consumers. You're able to map that against like the massive data set that Common Thread Collective has. And we're approaching the spending power that you were tweeting about this week. But I want to jump back quickly. You said you guys started looking at it almost 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think brands operating at that time were probably all in the same bucket. That was 2022, mm-hmm. where like we're coming off of massive e-com adoption during the pandemic, 2020, 2021. We're getting, consumers are getting stimulus checks. They've got disposable income. They're not able to spend money on travel or eating out. So they're spending money on e-com. It was like awesome. And in 2022, that stops. And everybody was like, at least from Ridge's perspective, and Cody, I don't know, I think you guys were ripping in 2022, but for us, we were like, what the hell happened? Like, this is the Facebook ads are not making money the way that they used to. And we were like asking those same questions. It was around this time where like, gas prices were also like extremely high. And I remember plotting conversion rate against gas prices. And it's like, obviously that's going to be like inversely correlated. If people are spending 6% of their income, 10% of their income, I forget the stat, but it's like a really large percentage of the average American of their income is being spent on gas. If more of that's going to driving to work every day, they're going to be less likely to purchase the $100 minimalist wallets. And it seems like we were all asking very similar questions at the time, and you guys built like a very elegant solution for better tracking and reporting on that.
Well, thank you. We wound up down kind of a similar path. We were looking at gas prices, consumer price index, and then finally looked at consumer confidence. And that's what kind of led us down this road where it was like, oh man, this is kind of cool. We should build one of our own because this is not responsive and it's not necessarily tied to what's going on with our industry. And with like COVID being a huge outlier, like if we go further back in the data set to the time when everyone was doing extremely well in e-commerce in Q2 of 2020, the consumer confidence index was tanking at the time because all physical retail was in a tailspin. So we realized that we're not correlated to what is going on with that confidence index in those sort of situations. So we want one separate.
100%. I love it. Cody, did you want to make any points here? Otherwise, we could jump into the spending power stuff.
Yeah, I can tell. And I know that we were also struggling around the same time because I just pulled up my DMs with Taylor and went back a ways. March 8th, 2022, I was like, have you guys ever modeled or looked at the correlation between like ROAS and the stock market? And because I think it was like right after you guys probably launched StatList. So I'm like, have you guys ever looked at it and compared it? And he's like, no, but I'd be shocked. And I'm just like, so it's just funny. We had a conversation about it then. And obviously stock market was probably not right and way off, but I think that was what got me thinking about it because I think that was probably right when like the Ukraine war started. And then obviously people stopped spending, but we were also not ripping then, Connor.
Okay, so I sent Taylor a very similar thing, but it was September 2022. So you beat me to it. But yeah, as I mentioned, like we were all asking ourselves like very similar things because we were all trying to better contextualize our performance. So anyway, I just think that's funny the way it's all come about.
So I beat you to it, which means we were struggling more than you were before you.
Dude, our 2022 was brutal. I don't think you were struggling as much as we were, but not a contest.
Yeah. Certainly, like our whole data set was struggling at that time.
Totally. Yeah. So cool. So Steve, the reason I was super excited to have you on was because of the thread you had last week about spending power. So maybe you could just give like a high level overview of what problem you were trying to solve and kind of where you landed.
Yeah, so it relates back to like the spend versus AMER models that I wound up doing for brands. I actually kind of come up with the spending power for them for each particular month. So we wind up developing curves to see how quickly they're degrading efficiency by increasing their spend. And that's something we do for every brand at Common Thread Collective, like even the accelerator brands. So then in developing that actually relates, I thought it could relate to the entire data set that Common Thread Collective has. What if we can come up with a way of, given this much money, this is how much AMER will decrease, or how much additional spend will the whole data set decrease in efficiency? And I was able to map that out for our data set using like 3 years of data to see how this historically went. And obviously we see the same sort of peaks where November shoots up and December is fantastic as well. And then you kind of see it dip back down during lower times, October being a particular struggle, as well as like some of the winter time as well.
Totally.
So that led me to develop a curve then for all of it, for any particular month. That shows kind of the spending power. And there I show on that chart, like the two maximums where like November of 24 was like our highest spending power, essentially the furthest out you can get with AMER continuing to stay high, even when you spent more. And then the lowest was actually just the month prior, October in 23. I messed up that chart a little bit. It was actually 23 November and 23 October that were the two kind of maximum and minimum on that chart.
Totally. But the point being here, you're finding a relationship between how much more you can spend and how quickly will AMER diminish?
Correct. Yep. Absolutely. And then
I think you started what I thought was interesting. It's at the very beginning of the thread. But for May, AMER came in 92.5%, 92.5%. So below the average.
Correct. Yeah, it was below our average, but with above average spend, like 120% of average spend.
Right. Which the average brand should be comfortable with AMER decreasing if you are able to scale up 21% above the average.
Right. Yes, exactly. And also assuming that you'd have decent returning customers as well.
100%.
I keep hearing the same things from people lately. I'm being asked to do more with less. I have big goals to hit, but my budget is tight and every marketing dollar needs to work harder. I know I'm hearing this at Hexclad. I'm sure a lot of operators are hearing this at their brands. Super relevant right now. Incrementality testing is the best way to figure out what's actually moving the needle. So you can move around your ad spend in a way that's backed by science. All three of us use House for incrementality testing. We all love it. And House is now working with more than 40 of the top 100 DTC brands, which is pretty insane. I can speak personally for Hexclad. The amount of insights that we've gotten, especially on our view-based channels and how those are driving impacts in efficiency and revenue for our business, is not only super valuable, but only possible through House. You know, channels like Connected TV, YouTube, TikTok, these very view-based channels that don't garner a click the same way that Facebook and Google does, have been really only measurable through geo incrementality holdout testing. And the actionable next steps from these tests in terms of deciding to scale up or down or keep spend where it's at is really amazing. House helps you run experiments on your channels so you can confidently answer the questions you've always wondered about. Things like, what channels are actually driving my business? How much should I be spending on each channel? What's the impact of my ads on Amazon or retail sales? How should I structure my Meta and Google accounts to make sure they're spending dollars in the right way? The beauty of House is that it's built for marketers. The science under the hood is rigorous, but the platform itself is simple. So you pick a question, launch a test in minutes, and get real results fast. Every customer is paired with a measurement strategist, someone who understands growth and brings a clear strategic point of view. They will get to know your business, help you build a roadmap of impactful tests, and guide you as you operationalize incrementality in your day-to-day. Even if you're brand new to testing, you're not doing it alone. It is very much in no way like a go sign up for the platform and figure it out on your own. You have a partner in these customer success reps from House who's been in your shoes. And now more than ever, you need to make every marketing dollar count. Up-level your measurement with House by going to house.io/operators. That's HAUS.io/operators and start allocating your budget with confidence.
Some of my main questions here, Cody, do you have any questions on this? You think we're doing a good job running through the definition of spending power here?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's clear.
Awesome. Because a couple of my questions. One is how brands can utilize this information. Like, we're publishing it and we're able to understand theoretically that if we can spend more, we can accept diminishing returns, and that in our ability to spend more changes throughout the year. This says I can spend more and have a slower diminishing return in November. It's pretty good in May. It's really bad in October. So do you have a perspective on the average brand? They're following you on Twitter now. They're getting this information updates. Like, how should they be thinking about this information?
Yeah. So it will affect the economy in general, but you have to understand that there's like a lot of different verticals in this too. So some being far more seasonal than others. Whereas like we look at like supplements or car parts, or healthcare type stuff, that winds up being almost seasonally agnostic, where it's not that crazy a difference. Whereas if we look at something like paddle boards or kayaks, drastically seasonal, or skis, drastically seasonal. So those sort of things, it's really going to depend partly on the brand. So what I would say is like, see how closely it matches up with what you perceive as your performance. Now at CTC, we have curves for all the brands in terms of spending power, so we can see how they match up versus this overall spending power.
Totally. And you know, what makes total sense is that some brands are more seasonal than others, right? Like, we're a great gifting product. So we just came off a really strong Father's Day. It was a really okay, is what I was just explaining to Cody, but like a big Father's Day. Same with Q4. Our wedding band business, we do really well in the fall as people prepare for fall weddings. We do well during Valentine's Day because I guess people are getting new rings around then. So there's like obviously that. I guess what's harder to track for brands is variability not explained by seasonality. Like, and that's like the consumer confidence information that comes in. Like Father's Day year over year, I know that it can be bigger. I know that we can spend more. But relative to like what are consumers' true spending powers, and is that better or worse year over year, and how should I adjust my strategy because of it? That's what we were saying right now. That is so anecdotal, and I don't know if there's a true solve for it other than being aware that you're not always operating in the same sort of environment from a consumer spending perspective.
Right, absolutely. Well, we're trying to figure out a way to put a number on it and then to decipher that number down to the different verticals as well as individual brands. So I think the next thing for me to be doing would be to correlate this to specific brand performance and their spending power in any particular month, as well as different verticals. So like see if fashion and apparel or cosmetics and beauty have different kind of curves that go on at different times of year. They might be more impacted, more gifting in a way.
Yeah. 100%. Extremely cool. So is that kind of it felt to me like spending power, you said at the beginning of the thread, that you had been mapping things against AMER, but that doesn't take into account scale. So you came up with the spending power like proxy. So what comes next? Is it verticalizing it? Like if you extrapolate out like 6 months, 12 months, like are there more questions in this area that you're interested in solving?
Yeah, I think I would be verticalizing it. I would be correlating it to individual brands so that we can see how each of them perform. And right now I'm only predicting it 1 month in advance. Like I'm looking at the beginning of June, I'm looking at June. And the beginning of July, I'll look at July, but I'm going to see if it can carry out a little bit further. Of course, I can tell you the seasonality, have some idea of the seasonality based upon CTC's historic data set, but factoring the surveys is going to get us a lot closer to the number, like way closer to what the spending power would actually be for any particular month. So I'm going to try and see if that can carry 1 or 2 months out rather than just tell you, hey, this is what's happening this month.
Yeah. Okay. So that's actually what I was going to ask about. One of the questions that gets asked currently is, do you expect to spend more or less in the future?
Yep.
So are you saying that maybe with answers like that, you can predict the spending power of an upcoming period? That's what would be the most valuable to someone like Ridge. It's May 10th.
Mhm.
We're a couple days out from kicking off our Father's Day sale. We're planning budgets. We have no information as to like whether we should plan to grow year over year or whether the consumer's stronger year over year. We have our most recent performance. We could say like, I'll give you an example. We grew pretty significantly year over year during our anniversary sale in March. So we were like, okay, we feel relatively confident that we should be able to grow this coming Memorial Day and Father's Day, but having like being more scientific about that could be massively valuable because we've at least learned the lesson. We've tried to spend into periods where the spending power is not there, right? Like the returns diminish quickly. And that's just such an expensive lesson to learn. So the more predictive information that we can get to better budget, to better plan is like, seems massively valuable.
Yeah, thank you. That's the idea, is to kind of predict. So, I mean, I was taking the beginning of June with the close of May's data and trying to predict June's spending power, and essentially seeing it being like around 9.3% less than last year.
Okay, see, not good.
No, not good.
And just making sure I understand, this is taking both recent consumer confidence as well as seasonality into account for both to give you like an output for the next month, right?
Correct. As well as stock market data. I pulled that in as well. I'm like, well, that's actually kind of pretty related.
See? Was right after all. Yeah, we use, I don't know if, Steve, if you guys use this, but for our cohort forecast, we use like a seasonality multiplier for our cohort data. Cause like when we forecast it out, we'll just take like an average retention, right? If like, you know, retention is like 14%, it's not average every 30-day cohort. Like October cohort is going to be way more valuable because we have Black Friday after it. So we might have like a 1.5x seasonality multiplier. And for us in the summer, we're lower. And so that's how we forecast our repeat customers. But I feel like this is almost a similar thing, at least on the seasonal side, where it's almost like giving it a seasonality multiplier for your like efficiency and spending power. But then you're layering on obviously like recency into it.
Yeah, exactly. We wound up doing the same thing with our cohort specific like LTV model for returning customer revenue, where we take the seasonality multiplier times like our normal lift, or add it to our normal lift.
To backtrack quickly, so you said using May's data, you're predicting that spending power will be 9% less in June year over year.
Correct. Yeah,
and I guess it's the delta year over year that's probably like there might be something seasonal about it. Like maybe it's not as warm, so people aren't buying as many tank tops or something. But like it's probably actually a better indicator of non-seasonal things that are contributing to consumer spending. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's probably what's going on. And that's what I'll probably try and do in the future too, would be to pull out the seasonal component and then the like a seasonal adjustment for what we're seeing. So that would probably be the better way to address it. Yeah.
Okay. So when did you publish that based on the data, you think spending power will be 9% less in June?
I kind of published it in a tweet, but not like really. I didn't explicitly come out and say it. But last year our June was 94% of like average spending power. And then this year we were looking at 84.6. So it was like 93.4 or something like that last year. Yeah. So certainly it's seeing a drop of like 9.6%, I think it was.
It's super, super interesting. Yeah, I'm like a total geek about stuff like this. And I was just telling Cody before he jumped on, I'd gotten I think this was before he jumped on. I got 2 texts from other founders for Father's Day saying it was softer than they expected. And like, that's the only, without this 9% data point you just gave me, that's the only context that I have. We've had a very okay Father's Day. And this is exactly the conversation we have internally. How do you feel about sales? I feel very okay about it. We're slightly growing. We're more efficient. And, X person, Y person text me. They said their sales are soft too. Like that is the best that I can really do. But then having the context of like, hey, Steve now says that spending power is actually down 9% year over year can also help contextualize like, what does winning look like in this environment? And it does probably seem like moderate, more efficient growth is solid. And maybe I'm just like, coping. Maybe I'm just like
the more reasons that we have to strip ourselves of accountability, the better.
Yeah, 100%. I'm picking out the data points that support my position.
Right.
So that's why it was so important to have you on today, Steve. I was looking for more.
Yeah, just in case Sean is listening, really.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, he's a weekly listener. He'll hear this.
Yeah, I hope he is. And hopefully it gives brands some additional data in their bag to, if they have to go up against investors, to explain some of the tough times they might face because of this.
100%. Well, cool. I think this was super helpful. I suggest everybody listening subscribe to the D2C index. I think a lot of the DTCCI data gets published in there.
Yep.
And then what's your handle on Twitter so people can follow you there? Get as real time as possible.
Yeah, for sure. Steve Data. And I'm the only Steve Rekuc on Twitter. So
the only
you
Steve
can also find
Rekuc.
me.
Not the only Rekuc, though.
No. Dave has some great, probably better content than me.
Debatable. Awesome. Steve, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, man. You've heard us talk about Prescient AI before. We work with them at Jones Road, but you still might be wondering, what is it? What is this MMM thing? At its core, Prescient really helps brands get more out of every marketing dollar that they're spending by showing them what's working, what's not, and where to spend their money next. The Prescient team knows modern marketing is a sum of many things: your media spend, seasonality, other marketing campaigns, consumer sentiment, and so much more. That's why they don't rely on pixels, biased platform measurement, or old research models to help you make the most confident decisions. They truly built their MMM from the ground up based on models that adapt to your data and evolve over time, not the other way around. If you want to measure the halo effect that your campaigns are having on all of your channels, I'm talking about e-commerce, Amazon, and even retail, then Prescient can help you out. You can test new channels, predict future performance of those channels, know how much you should be spending on each of them, and continuously optimize how you spend your budget to make it as efficient as possible, which, listen, we all need right now. You can do this all without sacrificing your upper funnel budget or bottom line KPIs. Prescient has proven to us how truly incremental and efficient some of our upper funnel channels like TVR that was very hard to measure prior to it. So if you've been wanting to try Prescient, they just upgraded their model, and their vision across measurement and retail is truly next level. They take marketing decision making where it's never been able to go to before. If you want to learn more and gain insights into how you can optimize your entire media mix in as little as 48 hours, then go to prescientai.com/operators and book a demo today.
All right, cool. So that was Steve Rekuc from Common Thread. I recommend everybody follow him and appreciate him jumping on for our first ever intra episode guest. We've got a couple more things to talk about. Cody, you've been saying...
Well, we should talk about that first. So we're gonna try some segments. I don't think we named that one yet, but is that an explain that tweet? Is that what we're calling it? I kind of like
that tweet's pretty good. That was we've been sharing ideas in in the group chat, and basically I just throw in a tweet and I'd be like, I'd love to hear more about this, and spending power was definitely one of them, because kind of a hairy topic. So yeah, we'd love to have more of them.
Yeah, I like explain that tweet. I really liked what Dylan did when we had him on, where just tactically going over the heat map and a tactical 10-minute session or something like that. So I think that would be cool. I think those would be some good new sessions to add in when we need to spice it up a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, there's a lot of really talented operators there in need of an audio first medium. That's what we're here for. All right, cool. You want to talk about your the new PDP test?
Yeah, let's do it. We shipped it today. Brand new PDP. So we've been obviously testing a lot of things, but one of my goals for the end of the year is essentially a site rebuild. But instead of just shipping it all at once and designing an entirely new site, we're kind of iterating our way there. So constantly A/B testing, not as much as I would like, but we've gotten to a really good spot. But trying to learn from it, and I think our PDP was built probably this. This is probably our current one is probably the second version we've had since we launched. It was pretty atrocious when we launched, and obviously there's been a lot of small tweaks and Frankenstein A/B tests and deployments after that. So we wanted to clean it up. It's kind of, I don't know if you've ever felt like this, but it's you test all these small things and then you deploy them, and then you look at your PDP and you're like, I kind of hate it. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't look good together, even though this test one and this test one. So wanted to clean it up, and then there was just so much that we wanted to do and improve and add a lot of content blocks around our main objections and things people are looking for. So this took a while. We had some team turnover. We had a new agency onboarded. So this was really like our first big project with them and took way longer than I would like, to be honest. The good news is we learned a lot in the process that I think is going to help us move and test a lot faster in the future. So it took way longer than I wanted.
What were some of those learnings?
So we have an internal design team, but we don't have a UX designer. So we're using the agency's UX designer, and it just wasn't quite feeling right and like on brand. And I hate giving that feedback to agencies because it's so subjective and it's not really that helpful. And what we decided, and the agency gave us this feedback, and I think it was really helpful, was like, you just need to give us your exact design toolkit. Like, give us a design system. Like, this is where I use that font. This is where I don't, all that kind of stuff. And probably about halfway through it, I don't want to say we blew it up, but we had our internal design team kind of edit the Figma file and use this new version of the PDP as kind of the design system. And we didn't just go off of our existing site, because there was actually a lot UX wise that I just was not very happy with. So we kind of like rebuilt it. And so currently this new PDP doesn't match the rest of our site, because like I don't think our like UX has best practices across the rest of our site. Mm-hmm. But we kind of like redid it, kind of like took a few weeks to lay it all out, in a Figma file and organize it. And we even added some new fonts in and some new rules just to fix some of like the visual hierarchy and things like that, and font sizing. And so we kind of paused, slowed down, and then allowed us to proceed with it in, I think, a way better place, and got like their UX team and our design team kind of a little bit more coordinated. So that was a huge learning, and just like slowing down to speed up a little bit. Since then, we're developing right now, but we designed a new collections page template and use this design system, and just so much faster and awesome. Such a better outcome. So feeling good about it, but took way too long to get there.
Yeah, You mentioned on Twitter that it took you guys months, and I saw someone be like, it should have never taken that long. But you're really not giving yourself enough credit, considering you start the process, you stop the process, you build the design system, then you go back to finishing it. I mean, you guys got a lot more done than just designing a PDP.
Yeah, one tweet doesn't capture that. I blocked that. But still, one tweet doesn't capture that. Got no time for that negativity.
And so you're testing it now. You mentioned some more content blocks around objections. Are there any other like big changes that you think are really going to make an impact?
There's a lot of small ones. Like rather than showing all of the swatches, we have them, listed out by like different sections. So if it's like a foundation, like light, medium, fair, things like that. So it's not just all at once. Better increased font size, better UX and visual hierarchy on our upsells to drive some more attention to them. I thought on mobile, our old images, like you have those little dots at the bottom to see there's images, but I actually wanted to have like the thumbnail below the images to be able to, scroll and swipe through them. Better UX on FAQs. We had a lot of nested things, a lot of like drop downs, and people were clearly clicking on it. So I was like, let's just build out sections. Like if they're clicking on it, let's not make them go and search for it. Like, let's do it. So we had like shade descriptions hidden. We built out two of the new sections. One is a like a lookbook kind of. So I wanted to show like a filterable lookbook. So like, let's say you're, light skin and you want to use Miracle Balm as a blush. You can click light skin blush and you can see all of the shades that would apply to that. And then you could hit a toggle that shows on model or on swatches. So just, again, the biggest feedback we get from anybody is, how do I find my shade? And the more we can do to help people find their shade. As another one, we get some feedback that like, I don't know what Miracle Balm is. So we built this section specifically for Miracle Balm that just shows the 4 use cases of it. How to use section with videos on it. So just a bunch of new sections. Will try to be just like a lot more content rich, ingredient focus as well. So, it's a much longer PDP, but we'll obviously test into it. So yeah, I think just combination of more content and improved UX overall is what we're excited about. So subjectively, it's to me 100 times better PDP. Mm-hmm. It's not perfect. Like we still will test into it a lot, but I am very nervous to test it because you never know, and we put a lot of hours into this.
Yeah, totally. So you're testing it now. How'd you set it up? IntelliGems?
We set it up in IntelliGems. I don't know if it was a theme test or whatever, but yeah, running a 50-50 in IntelliGems.
And have you checked the data?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, how's it looking?
I was hoping for like 69% lift just to be able to screenshot that.
Yeah.
We're down so far, but it's early.
It's super
it's not
early.
even worth looking, so I shouldn't even have looked.
Let me ask you this. So let's say we go a couple weeks and it's like minus 4% revenue per session.
Mhm.
You think the PDP is 100 times better? Do you just launch it?
It's such a great question. And then it's like, why even test it at that? Like, that's my question. It's like,
Well,
if I'm going to deploy
something
it,
catastrophic.
yeah. But and then it's like, what was even the point of building this if it doesn't beat it? And like, does it change everything I know about marketing? Like, I would be demoralized.
Well, I hope that's not the case.
Yeah.
I've it's been a while. It was mostly last year. I felt like we were testing a lot of e-com stuff and like not getting any significant wins or losses, which was like almost worse, frankly. That's why I posed the question. We've definitely pulled the trigger on like things that I like way more and just had like a negligible impact. So it's like theoretically made no impact on the business. I just like it more. So we published it. We spent a bunch of hours and time designing it and developing it. It's like you don't love that, but I described it as Sisyphusian. You got to just keep pushing the boulder up the hill.
It's real. I will say it's really frustrating, and I really enjoy e-com. I really enjoy CRO. So many of the tests that I think are just like obvious, like all of these kind of like best practices or just things that are just like clearly like a better website, like don't perform. Like we just tested images. So we changed our last 2 images to have like our main value props with like ingredient colors, like the things we know people are listening and looking for. No lift on it. Like bigger font, no lift. Like way better description copy. Like so many things that you would look at and be like, that's just like a no brainer, like obvious. So it is really frustrating. But yeah, I think unless it's like a catastrophic decrease, like we'll end up going with it. But that would be a big bummer if it's not a winner. So hopefully we got some good data in a few weeks.
Yeah, 100%. One thought that I have, we did a test with PostScript. We were testing their, this isn't a great example, but I'll tie it back to what you just said, because I think it's true to some degree. We were testing their, what was their like smart conversation agent thing?
Yeah. Yep.
The name's escaping me, but we tested that. This had to have been like Q1 last year or something. And like, we just didn't see a big impact in conversion rate. It was like the people that would convert, I just converted through the typical SMS, or they would convert at the exact same rate, whether they were getting like this one-to-one experience. And one thing that they said at the time was just like the SMS subscribers that we were capturing were just extremely qualified. And it was like, and I wonder if some of and I mean, you've mentioned this, like I think 40% plus of revenue this year is going to come from returning customers. It's like, yeah, the value prop images in the last 2 of the carousel probably don't make a big impact to those people. And maybe it gets like diluted over time. Like there's no doubt in my mind that if you feel that having more value props, if you think they look great, rewriting the descriptions, you think that looks better, like those wins will stack up over time. But maybe in a week or 2-week long test, it just kind of gets like diffused by the amount of high intent traffic that you have on your site, that the people that it matters to are the ones that are there for the first time, who are just slightly more educated or who think the description was slightly better and now are going to convert better over time. That's hopium for us.
No, I think that makes sense. I also more hopium. I like that word. Is like, I wonder again, because we have a lot of repeat customers and repeat traffic, like how much of an existing page is winning just because that's what people are used to.
Right.
Which is kind of similar. That's my theory. Cause like, again, we're testing a lot of these versions that I think are significantly better. And it's not like we're just blindly guessing. Like we are looking at data and we're looking at heat maps and customer research and still not winning. So I wonder if some of that, and I also don't think that like Intelligems or any tool can like perfectly accurately tell you if somebody's a new visitor. Because again, if you're, totally. I've been on our site and multiple sites on my phone and on computer today, and like you'd be tracked as a new visitor, but I, definitely not. Or I just like by default have incognito open, just because I'm constantly like trying to preview our theme and stuff. And I'm sure some people do that. So yeah, I also wonder if that's part of it. I don't know about you, and how often you check Intelligems, but do you get your data flop a lot? Like, will you have one thing be a winner for like a week and then you check in like a few days later and it's like, it switched?
Yeah, dude, I don't like I have no idea how that works. We've had so many examples of like, it starts out the way that you want and it's like that for like 36 hours and then like it'll shift. And I'm always skeptical of that. I'm like, why would it shift? Like if it's a true A/B test, did my traffic makeup change so that like things started performing? Like, I don't even want to get down that rabbit hole because you could just tell I've thought about it too much and we've had too many like heartbreaking A/B test results. So yeah,
it's like when you like lose a race at the last minute.
Yeah, 100%. So anyway, Godspeed to you in the PDP test. I hope it turns out well.
I'm just going to be constantly refreshing, monitoring the situation.
Yeah. The Bezos meme where you're standing there with the headset on. That's what exactly. I imagine.
Was just like, hopefully I got some good news in 2 weeks. If you don't hear me bring it up, just forget it ever happened.
We'll delete this episode.
Yeah. Have you ever seen, did you watch Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
You know the guy that plays Roy Kent?
Yep.
He was a writer on the show. I don't know if you've seen this, but he like sent in a tape and he put in a note with it. And he's like, hey, like, I think I could do this character. I think it's me. But like, if you don't think so, just like ignore this. Forget it ever happened. And that's like one of my favorite things ever. So that's what we're going to do here.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, no, that's a good way to do it. Ignorance is bliss.
That's why I was almost like not gonna test it. I think I'm like, I don't think I could actually do that. I think I like need to know, but I'm almost just like, I should have just shipped it. Should have just done it and not tested it. Then in my mind, it's like it would have had like a 70% conversion rate lift.
Yeah. You should have launched it on the day of your Memorial Day sale.
That's great.
Day over day revenue looks fantastic.
And then go to board, be like, hey, I just built a new PDP that has a 1,000% conversion rate lift. Where's my bonus?
Yeah, 100%, dude. Well, awesome. Look, I think we covered a lot. Anything else you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I think that was a good one.
But pretty solid Connor and Cody up with the surprise guest appearance from Steve Rekuc.
Your streak, 65 episodes, still staying alive.
Dude, yeah, 100%. And I have no plans to slow down. I'll drag my mic and ring light wherever it needs to go.
Yeah, to make it 100 at least.
Dude, I felt good about crossing 50, 65 now. We got another one Wednesday. Yeah, dude, I think I could hit 100, 1,000 even.
You got this. All right, let's start 100.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Thanks for a great up. All right. Thanks again for Steve for coming on. Thank you, listener, for tuning in for another week. As always, make sure to like, subscribe, leave comments, tweet at us if you've got any comments or questions. We've got the Operator hotline in the description. If you've got any questions, we'll be answering those on a future episode. As always, thank you to our sponsors, Motion, Rich Panel, Aftercell, Prescient, and House. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.